All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. It is 6:06, and I'd like to call the August 28th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Education, Cape Girardeau School District to order. Let the record show that all board members are present, and let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hang on a second. How do you look at December?
Yeah.
I've got a note on to fix that. We can go to, if you go to capetigers.com and then scroll to the bottom.
So we have to remember our password. I think I said that thing like 5 times.
We have a new system for our materials, so that's what. Bear with us while we figure out how to get to it.
If you guys scroll all the way to the very bottom of capetigers.com, it'll say school board meetings. Yep. Third from the bottom. I'll take you directly there.
Fancy login.
Oh, you don't have to log in.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Just click on it.
Sweet. All right. Thank you.
You guys ready? All right. You have before you an agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Jared was the second.
Motion seconded and carried. Next on the agenda is information, proposals, and comments from the audience. Did we have anyone? Nope. Okay. So moving on.
Do they have the QR code that they can scan?
Yeah, it was at the very beginning.
We need to probably let them know.
Well, it was up here the entire time.
Okay.
Did everyone see the QR code that was up here on the TV earlier? Okay, thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is the tax rate hearing, and I think next.
Tonight we are having the tax rate hearing, and what we are going to do is set our tax levy tonight. This refers to board policy DC1, and just to kind of summarize it, the board is responsible for levying the property taxes in a manner that promotes achievement for all students. We have to have a public hearing. State statute requires that. And we must annually set the tax rate, and we must set it before September 1st. So after this meeting, I will send it to the county collector and send it to state auditor to get certified. So this is what starts the whole process, is we receive our assessed valuation from the county collector's office. It's broken out by categories. So the main number that you are looking at right here is the 808-121-002. That is our assessed valuation for 23, for tax year 23. And that is the assessed valuation amount that we will the calculation will be done where we will receive our taxes. Included in that number is new construction and improvements. They break it out between real estate and personal property. So the $12,445,089 is included in the $808 million. That information is used to complete the tax forms in the state auditor's office. And what they do is they take that information and run a lot of different formulas, but they give us the tax rate ceiling for the district. And the ceiling is the highest amount that can be levied, and they break it out by operating funds and debt service fund. So our tax rate ceiling is $4.40. We do a voluntary rollback, and a voluntary rollback is we reduce the ceiling to say this is the amount that we want to levy. And the total number that you need to be focused on is the 4.1567. Those of you that have been on the board for a long time, that number is very familiar. You can just rattle that number off. We have always, when we've done our bond issues, promised the community that we would do no tax rate increase bond issues, and that requires us to keep that levy at a 4.1567. So this is the tax rate that we are proposing by fund. The incidental fund and the capital projects fund make up what is called the operating funds, and we use that revenue to pay for the majority of our expenses: salaries, benefits, supplies, purchase services. And you can see on the side the revenues that we would be expecting if we got 100% collections, which would be a little over 28 million. We usually get a 97 to 98% collection rate. The debt service fund is treated completely separate. Debt service is specifically to be used to make our principal and interest payments on the bonds. The rate for debt service, the 0.6647, that is a rate that our underwriters, our bond underwriters recommend to us. And so I try to keep it consistent at that rate to ensure that we have enough money in our debt service fund to make those payments. But again, the ending total would be 4.1567. New revenue, they calculate it on operating funds only. Debt service is not included in this. Total new revenue for the year is 1.4 million, and that number is just the net of the current year and the prior year. If you wanted to calculate, how are we getting to this number, you'll take the 808,121,002, you divide it by 100, and then you're going to multiply it by the levy. Of the new revenue that we'll receive, we have to break it out into how much is going to be from new construction and improvements, and how much is going to be from reassessment. So from reassessment, it makes up about 3.98% of the 1.4 million. Here is a little bit of a history, so that you can see. I stopped it. I just did a 10-year history, but you can see that we've been at the 4.1567 for a long time. We always keep the total levy the same. Now, it can change, and it does change. It changes between incidental and debt service, and you can see in 21-22 we started levying a little bit into the capital projects fund. There are rules on the rollbacks and how much can be levied, and so that's why it will change. And we always start with the debt service fund and try to keep that at the rate that's recommended to us. But the incidental fund has its own rules too. So that's why it will change over the years. Does anyone have any questions? This is about about a 5% increase, which is what I was anticipating, and what I have in the budget. So it is a 5% increase, and I say that it's over the revenues from last year.
So one of the things that Ms. Dudek and I discussed is that we're going to go into more depth in our professional development, because this is one of those pillars that you guys chose that you wanted to do for professional development this year. We've kind of talked about a plan on how we're going to go over some of those things. Ms. Fagley, Dr. Fagley is going to be sending out that professional development and what the 3 top professional development areas are, and this is one of them is finance. So we'll go into more in depth with this as well.
I have one question. And it's, the thing that said teacher fund at regular
Yes.
level, why is that always 0? What is that before?
So, teacher fund is where your certified salaries and benefits gets charged to, and then we also make tuition payments, out of the teacher's fund. Typically, we have not levied directly into that fund. We just we're allowed to do a transfer from the incidental fund, and we have revenue that's assigned there
Sure.
already. So we just continue to use the transfer.
It just looks funny that it says
It
0.
does, that it has 0 on it.
Makes
It
it,
does.
makes it seem not good,
And I
but.
didn't want to not include it.
Right,
you know what I
understand.
mean? So.
Can't we
And
transfer, I'm sorry, can't
At
we?
the end of the fiscal year, you have to zero that out. They don't really want you to leave any funding in there. Sorry.
No, you're fine. We can also transfer though into the capital projects fund from the incidental fund, correct?
That is correct.
So why do we levy directly into the capital projects fund and not just move it?
Because we're limited on the transfer. It's a calculation that is done by DESI,
Okay,
and you can only transfer enough in to cover your expenses. You cannot build a balance with your transfer. And so, when we started receiving ESSER funds, our incidental fund was doing better and our balances were growing. And we knew we had some construction projects that we wanted to fund, so that's why we started levying directly into the capital projects fund to help that balance grow.
any other?
Questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you guys notice later in the agenda, we will vote on this. So just making sure that you guys are following. All right, next up is informational reports. And first is board president report. I don't really have a formal report. I just want to welcome everybody back. The kickoff was fantastic, super fun, lots of surprises and giveaways. And from what I've been hearing, it sounds like the first week, even though it was really warm, was really awesome. So, next up is the superintendent's report.
Well, I'm going to hit on a few of those things as well. I just wanted to commend all the staff members for a great first week of school. Everybody was working hard and trying to stay cool as well. On top of that, I enjoyed being out in the buildings, and the last week, seeing all the smiling faces. We had so many kids. I got to see some of my favorites at Clifford, and got to sit and talk to him a little bit as well, Solomon. So that was kind of a special thing for me. I know that everyone is thankful for a little break in the heat. We hope that they will be able to get out on the playground at the Jefferson. If you didn't have a chance to see that on the news, we opened the parks opened the playground there as well, which is a great place for kids to go and play. But last week it was a little bit too hot for them to get out on the playground. So hopefully this week they'll be able to get out and enjoy that. If you haven't been by the Jefferson facility, definitely take a moment out of your day to drive by there. It's a pretty impressive site. We have a wonderful pool, and then we also have now a great park. So
It's an accessible park as well.
yes,
So
yes,
it's
it is.
inclusive.
Mhm.
All right. Next up, we have the CSIP program evaluations, and the first item is youth sports, which in our CSIP falls under Elevate 5.
Good evening. So what you'll see on your screen here is the program evaluation for our youth sports programming. One of the things I want to point out about the program itself is that our strengths of our program data. This is our Elevate 5 monitor and support the new athletic programming through our MSIP 6. As we talked about earlier, the strength of the program right there, the numbers really speak for itself for what's happened over the course of this year. The data that we have in that particular that's on the screen currently is what the number of kids at each of our buildings participated in at least one activity throughout the school year. Okay, so you've got 65 at Alma Schroeder, 56 at Blanchard, 60 at Clippard, 28 at Franklin, 59 at Jefferson, and then 101 at the middle school, 181 at the middle school. Now that's just at least one sport that they participated in. As we go down to that next part of the program evaluation, you'll see the number of second through fifth graders this year versus the number of third and sixth grade students from the 22-23. So this is what we did. I had to get someone smarter than me, so I asked Jamie Russell to basically take what the city gave us was all of the rosters from the sports previous, from the 21-22 school year. We dumped them in a spreadsheet, and I watched him do some magic that it was unbelievable. And basically take all of the rosters that the city gave us, cross-match that against our school rosters to find out how many of the kids that were participating in 21-22 were students of ours. And then we take our numbers from Final Forms and cross-referencing that with the city, making sure that those participants were correct. And then said, okay, this is the number of kids that were participating in 21-22. These are the numbers of the kids that are participating now. As you can see, those numbers exploded. In boys basketball was a 450% growth. Girls basketball, 395%. Soccer, 281. Baseball, 206. Track and field, 256. Softball, 156%. For a total number, and if you see there the students, what I want to point out is as you can see, there were 632. And you see what's the difference between 449 and 632? It's because we had kids play multiple sports, which is something we want to promote as well, as many multi-sport athletes. So as you can see that it went drastically up. We're really proud of the program so far and how many kids got to participate. We got a lot of positive messages from parents and about having the opportunity to participate, so we're real happy with that. Coaches for our teams were volunteers, including many CGPS staff. Cape Parks and Rec are thrilled. I presented to the Park Advisory Board last month. They're really excited about the program and the direction that it's going, and they presented on some of the things, the challenges that we have and things we want to improve. It's a brand new program. So obviously there's things there's bumps in the road and things that we're going to have to improve upon. Not to mention our Cape Parks and Rec and the rec department part, but also our elementary PE teachers. I cannot say enough about those teachers and the things that they did in their programming. I asked them last summer, hey, we're going to change your curriculum essentially. All right, it's all still going to be within what the state says your curriculum is, but we want to include that intramurally within your basic skills in K through 2, and then third and fourth doing those intramural skills during their lunch periods. So they've done awesome. They've been a great resource and really been helpful in helping these kids learn more of those skills at an early age. All right. So we started this program with the idea that we believe sports participation, education-based athletics, helps our students achieve more. They're going to be at school more often. Their behavior is going to be better. And with that in mind, starting this program, it's been a great success as far as the numbers go. All right. As we go forward, we'll see how those numbers transform what our students are doing in the classroom and coming to class, coming to school. And I think you'll see that with our attendance rates going up, hopefully those discipline referrals going down. Our principals did an awesome job of calling, hey, this kid isn't going to be able to play this week. because this is what they did. Okay, we'd contact the coach. Coach say, we'll let them know, and any situation, which we didn't have a lot of those, but any situation like that was handled real well with the parents and the students. Our program goals there, our concerns. As I've told you before, the biggest challenge is finding coaches, finding qualified coaches that would. But I do think I've already seen in the fall that's become easier because I do believe the communication of this program going out to our families. Okay, maintaining momentum, positive outcomes is a concern of mine. Making sure that we are convincing those non-participant families why this is a good program and why they should be a part of it. Our program goals are to expand the program to first and second grade in sports we currently do, which we're going to do this winter when we start basketball. We are having flag football, volleyball, and cross country this fall, and just increase the number of participants. That's what we want to do. Now, we do know there's going to be a plateau at some point, right? I mean, at some point we're going to reach a level where these are the number of kids that want to play. All right, I don't think we're there yet, but I hope when we get there, we can still keep promoting those programs, not just the programs that we are currently in, but those that we don't have any programming through Cape Parks and Rec, like golf and tennis, and we're working together, swim, trying to figure out ways to promote those programs with the city. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, and I did, as you guys upstairs in the 4:30 session, we talked about the Elevate 5 part of the CSIP 6, and this program evaluation it's August is the meeting that we covered this program through CSIP 6.
Thank you. Okay, next for program evaluations is Portrait of a Graduate, which meets Learn 1 of our CSIP.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to be talking to you about establishing a plan to develop and create our Portrait of a Graduate, which falls directly under CSIP Goals Learn 1. The snapshot that I've attached for tonight's board meeting kind of provides three different views from a couple different lenses. The first one is our working document slide that we have to actually present to DESE as our draft for approval. The next section on there is our written response to standards description, which kind of breaks down some of the finer details that aren't included on that slide. And then the back of this document actually starts to list out each of the focus areas that are going to be targeted for K-12 programming, and then our skill standards that are outlined for all those. So when we took this on, the champion or the primary working person to form these committees was our academic services assistant superintendent, our academic coordinators for secondary and elementary programming now, and our advisory committee. For this case, that advisory committee consisted of our district level leadership team working with our new coordinators for academics. Key metrics that fall under this are very large. You see there's a long list included there. That's because the goal of establishing and creating a Portrait of a Graduate is pretty much the umbrella to all academic services provided, ranging from grades kindergarten through 12. So you're hitting a lot of different areas, and there's a lot of reporting that's done through the district and state assessments that indicate our success for those measures. That could include state level academic performance, our district report card, district benchmarks, behavior and or attendance data, state assessments, and our college and career readiness report that's submitted annually back to the district. The action steps and the development in this case have already taken place. That committee already met and established those skill standards that I referenced earlier. Specifically, the portrait highlights the desired profile of a graduate focusing on communication, collaboration, critical thinking, adaptability, and responsible citizenship. All of the actual skill standards, including standards 1 and 2 or A and B, however you want to reference them by focus area, are listed along and broken down between grade levels K6 and 7-12 on the second page. I'm not going to reference all those, but a couple critical elements that went into the development of that was we wanted building principals who were content experts for their grade levels in their buildings, right? Because they're the ones that see the skills that need to be addressed daily. And then the other thing is we need to make sure we're assessing things that are truly measurable moving forward. And we feel like through all these reports and key target measures, we have ways to assess all these. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or clarify any of the information included on the document.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Bryson. This also we talked about upstairs. I mean, so this, we kind of went over this upstairs too. I guess one thing I would encourage as we start talking more about some of these things is just trying to use less acronyms. And so just as a reminder, Comprehensive School Improvement Program is CSIP, right?
Continuous.
Program? Oh, continuous. Sorry, that's right, and plan. That's right, there we go. But I think you'll hear this more and more thematically, I think, on how we're tying this stuff into CSIP, so thanks for helping us on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Academic Services Report. And Jamie.
So
I was
wanted
like
to share
walking around trying to figure out.
with you guys tonight a new program, which again for the crowd we also talked about upstairs just a little bit because it is a part of the CSIP as well. But this year, the state required all school districts to come up with a literacy plan for all students who may be, well, for all students, but including what to do for students who are not seeing success. And so I was going to go over kind of some of the requirements for that, so you all have a little bit of a basis for that, and then kind of some of the things that we've started to do already this year to start making sure that our students are ready for that. And so legislation-wise, it's Section 167, 645 that lists all the requirements of that, and we're going to go over some of those requirements. And so there's two designations that a student has. We've rolled them kind of all into one reading success plan. First part of it is the RSP, and it sets out kind of the base level of what is expected for literacy for students. And so we'll talk a little bit here in a second about what those areas are. But the first part of it is this plan is what goes, and as far as a district, this guides what we do. And the first thing that the plan does is it makes sure that we test students using different indicators. And like I said, we'll talk about those indicators to determine whether or not a student is one or more grade levels behind. And so there's one grade level behind, and then there's one or more grade levels behind. They used to call this ARF back in the day. Again, acronyms. They got to switch them up again on us.
At risk for reading failure.
At risk for reading failure. And now it's SRD. It's essentially the same thing.
What does SRD stand for?
Let me go back. Always forget because of the changes.
Substantial reading deficiency.
Yes, substantial reading deficiency is the new term.
I like ARF better.
I do like ARF better. It just rolls off the tongue. And so SRD is that for this year. And so the different areas there, it lists as phonemic awareness, phonics. As we've talked about before, that moving away from phonics, everybody's moving back toward it, is a huge movement, especially in the state of Missouri. And so that's a part of it. Vocabulary development, reading fluency, reading comprehension, which has been there the whole time. That's always been something that we've tracked, and Lexile level, which we've tracked in the district for years, but it's now a part of this plan. And so here is kind of the DESE indicator for all of their showcase for all of the different skills and at what grade levels that we assess things. Because DESE likes charts, it's in chart form. And so you can see at kindergarten, we start with the skills that are expected at that level. So phonemic awareness and phonics are skills that are, K1. That starts to, once you get to second grade, that expands into those reading comprehensions, fluency, vocabulary. And so we work from the building blocks of language up to the use of it. And then So that is your 5 parts there, or excuse me, your 7 parts. Your phonemic awareness and all the way to Lexile, which we just talked about, and then we have the RSP determination requirements. And the requirements are odd and very complex. And so, for example, a student can be at risk in 1 or 2 of the ones that are in orange, but in any 2 of the 3 of the others. So you imagine divided every student by every skill and making a determination on whether or not they get to do that. It's more spreadsheet magic that we're working on. And so, and then Lexile as well. And so what we've looked at as a goal is coming forward is that obviously we want kids to be able to grow as much as possible, either at reading level, or for those kids who are under reading level, being able to move more than 1 grade level in a year. That's the goal, because we want them to feel successful and see that growth. And so that is what our reading success plan and literacy plan is built on. This year we started, sorry, I'm juggling 2 computers here. We started to implement DIBELS, which is one of the tests that's out there for testing all of these different areas. Now, DIBELS doesn't quite hit what the state put out for a requirement for that test, but we've got a waiver for this year because they waited until very late in the year to give us what tests we could use. And so we've got DIBELS combined with some of the other pieces that we already currently have, and we've got a waiver for this year. And then moving forward, we'll either have to switch, but we've got tests for every single piece. They're just not all in one. And so those testing dates have already begun. Middle school started off, they were the guinea pigs for our 5th graders there and 6th graders. And so we just finished that up, I believe, on Friday and got a lot of snags out of the way. We've got all of our reading specialists going from building to building, so they're all together and they can use their time wisely a little bit better that way, instead of one person spending weeks testing all of the students. The tests are quick. They're usually less than 5 minutes for the DIBELS part of it. Again, we've got how are we going to then, what's the next step? Once we get these results, what do we do for these students? Primary support is going to be, either whole group and small group instruction inside of the classroom, and then as those students that are SRDs need more time, they will have time with our reading specialists. And the hope is that we have enough reading specialists. The state has not given us any extra funding for this. Matter of fact, one of the scares was, and this is from the federal level because this is where all of this funding comes from, is that Title II was going to get cut quite a bit this year, and that's where all of our reading specialist money comes from. And so kind of watch out for that, because if it happens, then they've given us a massively unfunded mandate. And so we're working with our reading specialists to make sure that their schedules are set and ready for to be able to implement, to push in, to pull out students whenever that's necessary. And so that's what we've worked on this last summer, pretty much, and starting last year. And so, if you guys have any questions, some of those other pieces there that I did skip over was, how we're monitoring them. They will get tested at least twice a year. We're actually set up to do 3 times a year, so that we can test kids out if they're finding success, so that we can then serve more students. So if there are students who test into the program mid-year, we can get them instead of waiting until the next school year. So again, we're trying to make sure that we're servicing all of our students when they need it.
I have a question about the testing.
Yeah.
Is this, because you said bringing all the reading, like the reading specialists, so is it a one-on-one test where specialist works with one student and then goes to an...
Yes, absolutely. And so they're all able to test every student. At least they are now. They weren't when we started on Thursday, but we got that fixed so that they can do that. And then at any time, we also have to service kids who are coming inside of the district within 30 days. So we've got to make sure that those are all set as well.
Just going to interject you for a second. So one of the big things that we found last year, they were spending weeks on end assessing these kids in each individual building. That's the reason why we can go in now in one day and assess all the kids, which is going to allow us and allow our buildings to have more time to work with these more at-risk kids for reading. So that was kind of the purpose of why we did that.
One of the things is communicating this to parents as well. And so we've got as we're gathering this data, we've got a form that's going to be sent out to parents that has all of this information, what kid, or how each student did on each of the components is on that report. And so getting some more spreadsheet magic, hopefully.
So it
keeps working.
I have a question. It looks like at 6th grade, these kids just sort of fall off the face of the planet, and now they no longer have an SRD, and they no longer, like...
So at 6th grade, there is a component that, well, the state just requires us to keep continuing to serve these students, but there's no, there's nothing for that, and they don't,
The idea of, well, of course we're going to continue to serve them, but so there's no in this manner, or this is we're going to flag them a certain way. They just sort of
correct, and we don't have to test them past the 5th grade.
But we continue to test them on their Lexile level,
correct.
So that teachers actually within 7th and 8th grade building, the reading teachers actually look at those Lexile levels to see which students they need to work with so that they can increase those Lexile.
I'm sorry, are those the ELA teachers that are doing that, or is that
The ELA teachers that do that.
Are doing? Okay.
The ELA teachers.
Okay.
Another part of this is making sure that, I talked to you guys upstairs a little bit about it, but making sure that our teachers have the skills to teach these different skills to our students. And so we've done, like I said, Orton Gillingham training, letters training from the state as well. I know 2 buildings are doing that as well this year as a whole building, and others have in the past.
And so one of the things that junior high is also doing, I don't know if you want to talk about their intervention programs that they're doing with, go ahead, Brian, Mr. Beck.
Yeah, so we reported on it last year, but it was the wide-scale implementation of ICU programming throughout the building for lifeguards being assigned to students, dedicated time to replace wind time for immediate student intervention. And then they've also programmed that building-wide now, and they've increased staffing using their building budget on how they wanted to allocate their funds. So this year we have even more lifeguards working with those students all the way across grades 7 through 8. So hopefully we're capturing even more students into that programming and having less missing assignments, less carryover into the high school with the interventions taking place.
And part of that shift too is K-5. There are certain standards that we're teaching students, and the hope is that obviously every student's on grade level by that point. And then what you see is 6-12, the standards change, and it goes deeper into the different pieces of writing and grammar and the different types. And so the standards just totally change once you hit the 6th grade, and that's part of the reason why they're kind of quiet on that after the fact on guidance.
Do we have data, Jamie, on, I'm presuming that like where you are, your 5th grade reading level probably is a relatively decent predictor of like future performance. If you're far enough behind, it probably gets really hard to catch up, or if you're on or above, you're probably on a good trajectory. I mean, I asked that kind of in the context of with kind of one-to-one devices now and different things, I imagine there's a million different ways to try to go help kids who are struggling with these things. And again, I would just imagine if you get far enough behind, everything just kind of fades away.
At a certain point in the development of all of this is you've got a lot of the skills. A lot of it becomes very content driven, content specific, and so it's specialty, right? And so once we get to a certain point, can a student read? Yes, it's more about exposure and continuous exposure to deeper and more complex writings and readings, and so that's the skills that we're trying to build at those levels for them.
And we also use assistive technology, so because they have one-to-one devices, they can listen to text read to them.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, my college students often plug in and listen to their textbooks read to them, so that's just a natural skill that they're learning as well.
And I think one of the ways that we do track that is the Lexile levels, and that's kind of one of the things that the teachers look at because they want to make sure that they're increasing that Lexile level by giving them more literature or literature at their level and then giving them a little bit more difficult, and that's how that works.
So what growth looks like changes once you get to a certain point.
Sure.
Any other questions?
You know, since we're talking about a lot of student successes and achievement goals and things like that with our CSIP plan, maybe at some point in the future you can maybe do a presentation on the ICU plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a wonderful program. When it was implemented here initially, 10 years ago, there was a lot of pushback on it because it was new and it was innovative. And the guy that developed it came here and presented it to the district, and everybody that was an employee of the district got a book that kind of walked everyone through it. I mean, it's an amazing program, and when you start talking about ICU and the lifeguards, I think a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? But I think once you get a grasp of what that program is designed to do, and if it's implemented correctly, the student success is amazing because it holds. It makes sure that the students learn what they're supposed to be learning rather than just turning in a homework assignment or, you know, getting in trouble for not turning in a homework assignment. It gives them the opportunity to do an assignment and then have it reviewed, and if it's not quite right, then go back and, you know, work on it some more. And there's somebody there to kind of mentor them to hold their hand through the process. So I think it might be good to at least, you know, a 10 or 15 minute
Yeah,
you know, presentation on something.
I think it would be probably best to have Mr. Cook come in himself and just report on that.
His process was over a couple of years to be able to actually implement it correctly. He didn't want to just throw it all in there. He wanted to make sure that each step in that process was done correctly, and then they fully implemented it with Mr. Beck's leadership.
And are we starting to implement it younger?
So
At the 6th grade now? Or?
it's fully implemented at the junior high school now.
Right.
After Mr. Cook's done a 2-year implementation plan. At the middle school, there's always been facets of ICU implemented, not so much by the textbook, so to speak, I guess, as Mr. Cook has done, because he's actually using the ICU database to manage students' assignments, different things like that. It hasn't been to that level from the grade levels trickling down, but the concept behind ICU of not allowing students to not complete work, content for mastery, a lot of those things you're describing, those are common practices that have occurred. But to be saying your ICU implemented from all grade levels, it wouldn't be the case working down.
Thank you. Okay, next is the Community Teachers Association report. Mr. Lappy.
Good evening. Before I read some staff shout-outs, I do want to say an appreciation for CTA got to support a part of the kickoff, and I think it was a great success. Unmute it. Oh, you mean turn it on? There we go. All right. So anyway, yes, CTA was able to support the central office with part of the kickoff. We appreciate the foundation was able to supply some prizes for the contestants that participated, and so we want to give a shout out to them and appreciate their support in that endeavor. So here are some building shout outs that I'm going to read to you. Starting at Alma Schroeder, their awesome custodians, Miss Jeannie and Mr. Anthony, who worked so hard over the summer to have our building ready. No matter what crazy thing teachers request, they always try to make it happen for us. Also to Amber Price and Sarah Deal, who came in over the summer and painted lots of things to add color to our building. Blanchard, Julia Williams, a first-year SPED teacher, is rocking her job. She has a smile and cheerful attitude every day. We are lucky to have her. Our whole Blanchard staff this year was the smoothest first day of school. At CAO, shout out to Mandy Keys, the one who has so many hats. She is an amazing person in so many ways. She is fantastic at listening and such a creative problem solver. She tries her best to accommodate every SPED teacher and student. She works diligently every single day at trying to fill so many SPED positions in the district. We appreciate all you do, Mandy. Shout out to Tina Wright and Leah Braswell for hand entering registrations when online registration went down this week. Shout out to our amazing techies who work so hard all year round and work extra long hours this week getting Infinite Campus back up and running. You guys are the best. At Central Academy, all of our teachers for making the best first few days of school the best it has ever been. Truly, it is inspiring to see how positive the staff is and how much they are connecting with students to make them feel welcomed and supportive. Miss Jackie Ainsworth at CHS, she has went above and beyond to help our office staff in inputting new schedules with students on top of all her duties at CHS. We cannot thank her enough. CTC, thank you to our 3 wonderful directors, Brock Crowley, Emily Lamfer, and Travis Wilson, for making the beginning of the year a wonderful experience. We had breakfast, lunch, and a potluck to help build community. They also set an amazing tone for the rest of the year. It is great to feel so supported by the administration at the CTC. At the Early Childhood Center, shout out to all the people at the ECC for the first time. This month we will highlight new teachers, Megan Flowers, Carolyn Allen, and Amanda Kistler. Thank you for all your hard work as we begin the year. At Franklin, shout out to our office staff and classroom teachers. We have had a frenzy of students adding and dropping, yet our administrative assistant, Carissa Sullinger, remains on top of everything in the office, all while maintaining a calm, pleasant attitude to all. We also want to acknowledge our nurse, Julie Pastrick, who has to track down all the immunization info, and our classroom teachers who are constantly updating roster information amongst everything else on their plates. You never realize how many places you have a student's name until you drop or add someone. I totally concur. Also, shout out to our head custodian, Mr. Keith Bernicke, who was working endlessly this summer to get our building prepared when we are short-staffed. He worked many long days, and we appreciate the pride that he takes in his job. At the high school, the CHS Business Department for going above and beyond to help their new business teacher that is going through alternative certification and has never taken a teaching class. Shout out to Ms. Ward, the new ESL teacher who has been pushing into classes to help her students. Shout out to Mrs. Taylor for helping teachers with so many of their tech problems. To Ms. Womble, Hall, and Taylor for helping out the new business teacher at Central Academy. At Jefferson, Skylar Diamond, as a first-year counselor, she is already cultivating relationships and helping the students navigate through their difficult experiences. Miss McFerrin for jumping straight into kindergarten with only 5 days until back-to-school night. She has done awesome. At the middle school, a big shout-out to the CMS SPED team for adapting to changes and working so hard to make the first few days successful for their kids. Shout out to the new teachers for getting to know the school and showing their students what it looks like to be awesome. Shout out to all staff for a well-run orientation. Shout out to all staff who are practicing the Give Me 5 conversation with kids. Awesome relationship building going on at CMS. Does anybody have any questions for me? We're going to try something new. I'm sure you probably heard me say at our kickoff maybe, but we are going to try with increasing our membership for CTA and having our meetings at Rosati's. So we're going to try, hopefully I'll give you a report. We have our first meeting in 2 weeks, so hopefully the next time I see you, well, I'll give you a good report and have some good numbers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
This.
Thank you. I was hoping he would wear the blazer. All right. Next is Treasurer Finance Report. Ms. Dudek.
This report is for the month ending July. Starting in the general fund, we started with the beginning fund balance of $18.4 million. Revenues received were $1.2. Just a little over $1 million in expenses, and July is a lower payroll month for us. So our revenues in our special revenue fund actually exceeded our expenses. Our teachers do not receive their first paycheck until August. So there was no transfer that was required to the special revenue fund, and it actually is carrying a balance at the end of this month, leaving us with an ending balance in the general fund of $18.6 million. The cash and investment detail is listed below. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Support Services Report.
Good evening. First off, starting with buildings and grounds. Phase 2 bid opening will be on the 14th. And the next board meeting, then you'll have motions in front of you to accept or modify. I also want to commend our maintenance department, and especially our HVAC techs for their fine work last week, keeping the HVAC systems going in our buildings was a monumental task. We had some brownouts going on in town, and it was kind of touch and go a few times. Unfortunately, before school kicked off, we had to cancel one of our back-to-school nights at the junior high because of that. But Ameren UE and our maintenance crew is very responsive, and they got us up and going again. And that was a supply feed issue on Ameren's end, but we have to power up that equipment. It's not like a flip of the switch. You have to go through a pretty lengthy process, bringing everything back up online. We have some pretty good work going on with our new building, or our addition that'll be going out on the CTC campus. As you recall, the state allocated $5 million towards building expansion for program development, and we're looking at increasing the size of our welding programs, our healthcare, or going a little bit deeper into our nursing programs, but it's also going to free up space inside the building that'll affect our plumbing, HVAC, electrical trades, so on and so forth. So we're in the early discussions of the design phase on what that'll look like, and we're really excited about the possibilities there. Red Star is moving along nicely. We had a lot of roofing repairs made this week. We've had tuck pointing and mortar repair and sealing of the building take place as well too over the summer. We're really close on putting out to bid some of the items that we're going to be doing there. But again, if you recall, we're going to be doing a lot of that stuff in-house as well too. So that's moving along. So we got a lot of our great ground stuff that are going on. I just want to commend, and Tyler also backed this up, just our custodial staff and our maintenance staff on the phenomenal job in getting the buildings ready to go at the start of the school year. For transportation, the first couple of days were a little long. Some of the buses running, and they always are, so I appreciate the community's grace and understanding that some of the routes will be a little bit longer. They're starting to settle down. Today was a really good day. So going in the second week, we're proud how those routes have kind of worked themselves out. We're still dealing with a lot of construction around our city with some one-ways and some detours that are affecting a lot of our routes, so we're having to make that work. And we do have a few openings on our bus monitor positions, so if anybody out there knows anybody who would like to be a bus monitor, have them contact me. But we're currently filling those slots with our staff and our TAs riding the buses to make sure our kids are safe on the bus. We had some new routes that you're going to vote on to accept a little bit later in the meeting. The main one primarily being we have fully separated all of our buses from Central Academy and the junior high. We used to have those students mingled on several routes. Jared, you're knowingly nodding in what that kind of infers, but we've been able to separate that and keep the cost where it was still within budget. So we're excited about that. However, we are seeing an increase in the need for some of our special needs student busing at the end of the day. And so Mandy and I are working on exploring that, what that would look like to help get those ride times down after school. You know, if a kid, 30 minutes is kind of long, 45 is pushing it, you go over that, we don't want our kids on those buses, any of our students on buses that long. So we're looking at redeveloping that. For nutrition service, we served almost 7,000 breakfasts last week and almost 13,000 lunches. So we're off and feeding the kids, and Dana McClard and our entire nutrition staff and Kayla as well, they are all just doing a phenomenal job. And to round this out with safety and security, we had a lot of great back to school trainings and professional development that took place with all of our staff, and those presentations and trainings will just continue on throughout the year. And so far, I feel we're off on a good footing. Any questions, concerns, or comments you may have?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next is district-wide athletics report.
Good evening again. So I want to start with our summer. Summer was productive as our numbers in our summer weight program improved at both the junior high and the high school. as you can see by the totals over the course of the past 3 years, this is really a significant push by our department to make sure that we're getting our kids and making it a culture change for our school, is that we're getting in the weight room. And I think that starts with our coaches pushing our athletes to get in there, and our staff that we have currently, our high school strength and conditioning and our junior high strength and conditioning coach. They're both just phenomenal at their job. They do a great job of getting kids in. Our high school and junior high admin teams have done a great job of getting kids into our programs during the school year, which again allows those, shows the importance of them getting into the weight room. So if you see those numbers, it's just a great year. It's our best year yet. I mean, close to 200 kids, 7 through 12, come into our weight rooms to get better athletically. They're at the bottom of that group. You know, we've got perfect attendance for CJHS and for high schools, and where those numbers have gone. They've made every single workout for the summer. And then the next group of people there, they call them our two coaches call it the Dirty 30. They've spent at least 30 hours in training, which is essentially about 90% attendance rate. All right, so I mean, so it doesn't penalize that kid that, hey, mom, dad scheduled a vacation, you know. So they had 54 at the high school and 34 at the junior high. So they were really excited. They asked the Booster Club to do some T-shirts for those kids, and the Booster Club provided those shirts for those kids. So fall high school and junior high sports have begun practices, and many of the teams have already competed. We had quite a few competitions scheduled today, for example. Last week was obviously a challenge, as Josh talked about with the HVAC. I want to give kudos to our trainers and our coaches for making the necessary adjustments to their practice schedules and making sure to keep our kids safe. That's not easy, especially when you've got your first competitions coming up, and to tell a coach, hey, you gotta go inside in the gym. That's not great. As a coach, it's not easy to do, but they did it, and they did it for the safety of our kids, so we appreciate that. Flag football, cross country, and volleyball sign-ups have ended. Those teams have been or are in the process of being assigned. We have great numbers. Our first fall season so far, 11 volleyball and 10 flag football teams from grades 3 through 6 and 18 cross country participants. Again, as I've told you before, we just keep attempting to get more and more coaches. We've even delved into the board members to get coaches this past week. So we appreciate your volunteering for those. Volunteering or being asked to volunteer. Yeah. So we appreciate that. Community, last week the CHS All-School Booster Club hosted a tailgate for the first football game that we had to move inside of the Commons because of the heat, but we gave away 492 tickets at the door. They were providing 500, so that worked out pretty well. They provided pizza and free ticket to all that attended. Very happy with the turnout. I mean, really great turnout for such a hot night. Big thanks to the high school custodial staff for their efforts. After everybody leaves the Commons, someone has to clean up that mess, and they did a great job of it. Also like to mention the high school and junior high admin and teachers that were supervising Friday. Holy cow, you go through the first week of school, and then that stared you in the face at the end, and they did an awesome job. I know they were exhausted at the end of that week. Can't thank them enough for all they do. This week, our Tiger tailgate is provided by Wings, Etc. It's also junior high middle school night, so junior high and middle school students will get free entry to the football game. We'll be recognizing all custodians district-wide for their service to our district as well. And one thing I wanted to add, our athlete visits are going to start this week, so we'll have athletes in our junior high and middle school buildings this week. Any questions? I know you're tired of hearing from me.
It's all good news. Thank you. All right, next, board reports. MSBA delegate report.
So the only thing, September 20th, and Beth, I'm hurt it's not in there. I typed it in and it's not in there.
It's under contact person.
Oh, well, that happens. So the new website, she was giving me grief about not being able to use a computer. But September 20th is the regional fall meeting. It's at the CTC, so if board members can make it, it'd be a good time to meet, greet, hobnob, meet other board members, that kind of stuff. So that's the only big thing there. The 20th at the CTC.
Is that 6 to 8?
6 to 8.
What day of the week is that?
That's a evening.
Thank you.
It's a
Thank you for the
Wednesday.
information.
It's a Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be there at 6 a.m.
Thank you. Next is Cape Public School Foundation report. Ms. McDonald?
So real quick, I just wanted to let you all know that the foundation did raise the $15,000 in the 30 days. We actually raised $18,075, and that all went into the endowment fund. And we received a $10,000 match for the Community Foundation of the Ozarks on September 19th. So I'm super excited about that. That was exciting. And then on February 10th, we're having our penguin party. So we're gearing up for that. Dr. Chavagas is our band, and it's at Drury Convention Center. And so there's a lot going on in the foundation office right now. So, but those are my highlights. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is approval of consent agenda items. This includes minutes of previous meetings, payment of bills, adult meal prices, bus routes that Mr. Crowell talked about, local compliance plan with state regulations implementing IDEA, and a contract for teacher of hearing impaired. Can I get a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion. Any discussion?
Local compliance is what we do every year for special ed. We adopt whatever the state has. You can give exceptions if you want to, but we've always gone with the state plan. Teacher of the hearing impaired is a contract our teacher who did those services for us actually moved to St. Louis to be closer to family. So we were not able to hire someone because we don't need someone full-time for that position. So we are contracting with an individual to provide those services for us. They're really minimal this year, so it shouldn't be a big expense to the district, and the cost is reasonable in comparison.
No, that's on the next
Okay.
business.
That's all I got.
Adult meal prices are gonna stay the same rate?
We're proud for the fact that we do not have to have an increase in the adult. We're proud that we don't have to increase the price for the adult meal, breakfast or lunch. We're staying the same as it was last year.
Just out of curiosity, how many adults do you serve throughout the year?
I would need to get back with you on the exact number, but what you'll find a lot of times is they typically eat a la carte. So they'll maybe just grab a side salad or grab fruits and vegetables, or they may just grab the cheeseburger, is what you kind of see a lot of times. But, you know, we're in a couple hundred meals daily to our adults. And to kind of give you an idea of our staff, you know, we have over 700 employees, so you know, a lot of times too with breakfast, they'll grab a partial breakfast, so that's a prorated cost. Just, you know, whatever the menu is that day. Crispito day, they eat Crispitos.
Some more on that day.
On the bus routes, I was just gonna comment, did we have the interactive bus map last year? No, I just never looked at it. That's a cool,
Yes.
it's a really nice tool.
It's been on our website for several years.
Oh.
We're able to put it on there, and
It's hard to find. No, I didn't look.
that's one of those communication pieces.
If it is or
that,
not.
Obviously, you know, we try to put it out there. A lot of times we get calls at our back-to-school nights. You know, we'll talk to families or have a piece of paper, hey, here's, you know, where you can also find the routes or whatnot. And then back in our office with Christy Manor, we have a really in-depth interactive map where it was developed through a Google mapping system where we can actually pinpoint, you know, it shows walking distance or driving distance and, you know, the closest stop, looking out for main thoroughfares, you know, and if elementary kids are affected, you know, do we want them crossing Independence? Do we want them crossing Broadway, West End, so on and so forth? So we change our routes to ensure that that doesn't happen. Or if it is a drop-off, making sure that the bus is traveling in a certain direction, so it's always dropping off curbside. on those May through fairs, so.
Any other questions? All right, those in favor of approving the consent agenda items, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, those items, motion is carried. Next is business items. The first thing is approval of the tuition rate for the 2023-2024 school year. And the recommendation is out-of-district tuition for elementary and secondary students, setting that rate at $10,500.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
How many students do we have that pay an out-of-district tuition?
So we currently have one student that is paying, the parents own property in the district, and so their out-of-pocket expense is very minimal. But it's my understanding that they live in the No Holcomb School District, and so when she gets to high school, she's almost there.
Okay.
This mainly applies to No Holcomb kids, but the school district pays for the tuition.
Okay.
And so it's a $500 increase from last year. We've consistently increased it $500 from year to year. And so that's just the recommended rate that we follow this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, those in favor of approving a tuition rate at $10,500 for elementary and secondary, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion's carried. Next up is the approval of the tax rate for the 2023-2024 year. Ms. Dudek already gave her presentation on that, so can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next is approval of community partnership CMO lease agreement for Educare. And this is to approve a short-term lease agreement between Cape Girardeau Public School District and Community Partners of Southeast Missouri for office space located at the Central Administration Office beginning September 1st, 2023. So can I get a motion on this?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Ms. Keys, or they've been working on the, They've been working on the contract for this for the last couple of weeks. Ms. Keys, I don't know if you want to.
So, yeah,
just-
Mr. Payne put the contract together because I do not know the legal stuff. But that's just for Educare that's upstairs. We right now share space with them. They rent from us. They were under CMO's leadership. That just got switched over to CP-CMO with the new grant cycle. That with all the movement that we're doing in district and our limited space, we are actually going to continue to rent to them through the end of May, and then CP-CMO will be providing a location for them. So this just talks about that and gives them room. If they can find a place sooner, they can leave sooner. So all that from the legalese.
Any questions? Any other questions or any questions? Okay, those in favor of approving the community partnership lease agreement for Educare, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next is adoption of board policy KCAP1 community engagement plan. So can I get a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Second.
I'm going to talk about this just briefly a little bit. We did several things to build this community engagement plan. We asked members to complete a survey starting end of May going through June. We also, as board members, we hosted 2 listening sessions in June to also get community input. And then we took the information from those surveys and from the listening sessions and built our community engagement plan, which, can you open it? And we've talked about this before in board meetings. We have, thank you, 3 basic threads that we heard when from the surveys and from the listening sessions: education, communication, and interaction. And we've shared this information, and you have seen a form of this already. We just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So, do you guys have any questions?
So in the supporting document, it said that there's a list of the focus group sessions. Do we have the dates for those?
You mean for the
listening sessions that we did?
Do you mean the
that
listening
currently
sessions, or do you mean the?
No, on the second page, under strategies, upper right-hand corner.
Oh, the community block parties and to promote unity and sense of community.
And the town hall things. Do we have dates for those yet? We're working on those.
Okay. Because it said the deadline was August 1st, so I thought you guys had already set them when you met to discuss it. Okay.
Any other questions?
Do we have an idea of when we're going to start that process?
I would say that we probably need to start kind of after school, get started probably in October, November, do our first one, once we get school started.
And we had talked about like kind of moving them around to different buildings as well.
So do we need to amend this and change that date before we pass it?
You're talking about the
August
August
1st,
1st, so it's
yeah.
set by August 1st. Sessions will be held.
Because there's 3 of those in there, 3
Yeah.
August 1st deadlines, and we're well past that.
Do we want to make an amendment to change those to September 1st or September 15th?
Well, that's by Friday. We're not going to have
Oh,
it
yeah.
by Friday.
Well, I forget how late it is.
I know. Yeah, we probably ought to change that.
I believe one of them we were wanting to hold at the CTC, but
Yeah.
we have to set those dates for that.
October 1st, because we probably won't have our first one until October, because we'll try to
Okay.
get the school session.
So we can change that, make it a amendment.
This is an administrative procedure, so like you said, it's a living document, so it's gonna be changing quite often. I mean, I don't know, are you all going to vote on it every single time you make a change?
Well, I kind of hate to vote on something that we know isn't right now. Like, if we can just make an amendment and change it real quick.
I mean, that's fine if we want to change it.
Make an amendment in this new system of stalling. Can we pretend that says October 1st?
We can change
And
it.
know that I was gonna change?
Yeah.
Just note that we're going
We
to
can
amend it by
yes,
noting that we're going to
discuss
change it in the document.
And we'll make the actual document change thereafter.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that.
I haven't begun to pay my debt to you.
So, but to Beth's point, so we've always adopted board policies, but when it comes to administrative procedures that are associated with board policies, we haven't typically voted on it in the past,
Right,
because
this was a
otherwise,
little
every
different.
time you
It's a
change
working
something,
document.
Yeah, this one's a little
Yeah.
bit
I
different.
mean, it's a working
because
document, you're right.
You all were the ones that had to create this.
right.
We didn't create this. That's why there's a mistake in it.
all right, I'll take the blame on that. I changed the dates.
But I agree though that, I mean, I tell you all every single time that you decided when to. I mean, we don't have every single event listed in here. So, I mean,
And it does note that we'll review it regularly, update, and add items as necessary. But if we can vote on this with the amendment to change those dates from August 1st to October 1st, and then I'm going to look at you.
And maybe
Then you can permit what you're voting on is the approval of the framework of this document. Once you vote on that and approve it, every change you make from there on, and just uncreate to the fact that it is a living document and will change. So I don't think there's any requirement that you vote with every change. You are simply accepting the framework of this document now and filling in the actual dates later.
Okay.
Good work for me.
Does that work for everybody?
Makes sense.
And we can, yeah, I mean, that's fine with me. We can just make sure by October 1st, which is going to be September 25th, and bring back actually what the laid out plan is for the year.
Okay.
Too, we can do that.
All right. So, please indicate by saying aye if you approve the adoption of this policy, this community engagement plan with the amendment to change those dates to October 1st.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? All right, that's carried.
For those community engagement sessions, the board's involved, so probably need to find out if we're available on those dates as well.
Yeah.
So maybe
I think
throw
that's-
out a survey with some different dates.
Okay.
To let people.
Like
What
we're
kind of
too enough to do. All right.
I can help you with. Don't say Jamie. I would help her. I'll help you with it. That's not very nice. I want to make sure that was her.
Thank you.
After all those sweet things that he said about it.
I know.
All right, the last item under business is approval of Lindsay Dudek as the authorized senior. I did look up how to pronounce that word, so that's the correct pronunciation. On the Elizabeth Von Reese scholarship account, currently there's no authorized senior, so this would make sure that we have someone. So can I get a motion for the approval of this? Any discussion?
This
Sounds like it should be
is just a
senior
formality
on.
that the bank is asking for us to do.
She's a senior.
It's a scholarship that's in the district's name, it's been in the district's name for a long time, but
All right. For approval of Lindsay Dudek as the authorized senior on the Elizabeth Bond Reese Scholarship account, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next item is information proposals from board members. Does anybody have anything to add?
I do have one thing.
Okay.
It's kind of legislative, but it really didn't fall in school legislation, so I didn't want to bring it up then, but there was a piece of legislation that goes into effect today, and it's the, what do they call it?
Is it the texting?
Yeah, the texting bill. Senate Bill 398. The reason I'm bringing it up is, so it goes into effect, not 24, but 25, January 1st of 25. I thought it might be a good opportunity for us as a school district to kind of get behind that, maybe, or at least inform our students and our parents, because maybe a lot of them don't read the newspaper or follow legislative items, and it's probably better to have the information out there rather than to get pulled over and get a ticket on your way to school, or because they're going to be looking for people, and they'll be giving out warnings for the first year, but after that the fines are pretty significant, up to $100, and then I think repeat offenders are up to $500, and if it's continually repeat offenders, they can actually revoke their license. So for our kids that are prone to messing with, even just holding it, or if they see them with it in their hand, they can pull them over and cite them for it. So I thought maybe it might be a good opportunity for Ms. Talent to, and Michelle to get that information in our kids' hands, and even the parents. Just a suggestion, since we
Yeah.
have a year,
Yeah.
we'll start now.
All right, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, it starts January 1st, 25. Don't wait until the last minute.
So,
Because they'll start, I mean, they're gonna start getting warnings now, so,
Now.
kids that are rushing to get to school, and the last thing they wanna be doing, be pulled over on Kings Highway or,
Right.
I don't know, Silver Springs Road, getting a ticket, because the police sit out there quite a bit, so
Yeah.
they'll be watching.
all right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We are officially adjourned at 7:20.